Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. Today's video I want to talk about the comments from Sir Jim Ratcliffe on the prospective or not sale of the Manchester United club and whether he'd be interested in buying it. I've seen a lot of interesting overreactions, negative reactions, conspiracy theories, and all sorts of things. And so I want to clear the air on a few things, especially if you've been watching some of the recent videos and been up to date on a lot of what I've been saying about the potential sale of the club. I want to talk about Donny van de Beek with reports that there's interest from Leicester. I want to talk about Cody Gakpo again, Ronaldo, and preview the game again against Omonia FC. So first, starting out on the sale, I want to make this very, very clear, as I've said this many times in recent videos. Joel Glazer and Avram Glazer do not want to sell Manchester United right now. That is a fact. They do not want to sell Manchester United right now. However, there are multiple of the Glazer siblings, the other siblings, that would be happy to let the club go for a lot of money. At the same time, while Joel and Avram do not want to sell Manchester United, they have absolutely, I know for certain, regardless of what's out there, explored the avenue of selling Manchester United and have at least privately or passively put it out there that they are willing to have conversations about it. They don't want to sell it right now. I've mentioned a few times that what they would like to do, their goal is to have, with having spent what they spent in summer, right now Manchester United is at its low. It's not successful. The revenues have not increased at the level that they should. The expenses are very high. It has more debt than ever. The interest rates on said debt is higher than ever. It has a stadium that needs refreshing. It has grounds that need refreshing. And they haven't won anything in a long, long time. The goal this last summer with the overspending that was done, which they cannot afford, when you look at the financial records, having the biggest losses they've ever had, the debt is full. They paid dividends basically from a credit line. The debt is full, the interest is higher, the club is not solvent at the moment. The goal was to have a good season and hopefully come March, April, May be in line to win some trophies, get back in Champions League, improve the situation, and at that point they would re-explore the valuation of the club and to think they can get more out of it than now. That's why I've always said this would be a long process, a drawn-out process with no guaranteed outcome. Joel and Avram would not want to sell. The difference is at the moment, with the direction things have gone, it's likely they will need to. They have explored their preferred options of getting investment while still maintaining control of the club, and nobody's interested. Nobody wants to do it. They explored it with Apollo. They've looked at valuations. They offered it to the Saudis. Nobody wants to pay for a part of the club without being able to run it. Anyone who'd want to buy the club would want to buy it on the basis of being able to take it over for the long run in the future. So that option has been effectively or almost eliminated for them as it stands. So they're left without many choices. What do they do financially? They cannot afford what is needed for the club. That is a fact. They cannot. And the finances of the club have been in a bad shape recently. They can claw back to where it needs to be, certainly, even while owning the club, but that's not what they want, and it's going to be difficult in order to refresh the stadium and take care of those plans as it stands. So they're almost being pushed in a situation where they would have to consider the sale, and that is the reality of it. So when you say they don't want to sell, it's not for sale, it's all true in that regard. They don't want to, and it's not right now, but they have explored the valuations of it. They have put the feelers out there. There have been conversations, and they are maintaining a light dialogue with people. I know that to be the case. They would like to get 5 to 6 billion for the club. They're going to put high valuations out there. You saw something about 10 billion. Well, that's not the case. That being said, it still is all going to come back to whether they let go. And it's impossible to predict. There's no gospel. There's no 100% truth here, simply because it's all going to depend at the end of the day on Joel and Avram and where they end up on their decisions with regards to selling this club. As Jim Ratcliffe said, there is interest, he had dialogue, and he would have bought the club if they had made it available in summer at a price that was there, that he could afford, that he could pay. And yet, at the moment, they still haven't. I think I've made this very clear. There are people at the club who want to sell. There are people at the club who don't. And it's all going to come down to when they're pushed into needing to do so, if they're pushed into needing to do so. If the club is successful this year, that doesn't mean they would not then look to sell. It just means that they would then hopefully get the valuation that they would want and be able to ask for what they would want, have more interest from what they would want, but they still don't have a route currently to raising the funds that they need to raise to do the things that need to be done at this club. And so it's not a matter of that Joel and Avram want to sell. They don't. But they may need to. They may need to. And it's financially, it's being pushed further and further in that direction. But there's no guarantee here. I see that a lot of people got very negative about this. One, if there's things in progress, that's not something Sir Jim Ratcliffe is going to say publicly. Two, you're not going to garner much from an interview like this. But three, I've tried to make this very clear. It's not about not being optimistic. I think there's a slightly better chance that they'll sell in the next year or two than they won't. But I've tried to not play it down, but stop people from going over the top and thinking it's going to be done in months, that it's going to be sold, that it's 100%. There's no guarantees when it comes to the Glazers. There's no guarantees when it comes to Joel and Avram because they do want to maintain control right now. And it's a matter of being pushed into it by the financial situations and what may be due to come. And that needs to be very, very clear, and I cannot make that more clear. It's about whether they will need to, because they have not been able to get the investment that they wanted. They've explored other avenues, and it has not been working for them. Okay? So that's the truth on the sale side of things, but I do know for a fact 100% that they have explored it. And they have explored it, they have looked at it, there are people who want to sell. It's not going to be out there saying the Glazers want to sell Manchester United, it's up for auction. Not going to happen. It's not going to be said like that. It's never going to come out like that. It's never going to look like that because it's not what they want. And they'd want to maintain, with a $5 billion to $8 billion asset, a position of strength in terms of the negotiations, in terms of the purchase, if someone were to come in. So this isn't a basic transfer. This is a long, complicated, drawn-out process with no guaranteed outcome, whether it ever happens or not. But there is still a better chance that it does in the next couple of years than it doesn't. Like Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, he doesn't want to wait around forever, and that is a fact. But that is also a statement that puts pressure on him to, look, you may not have a good buyer if you don't open up in the next 9 to 12 months and really give a firm price and make it now available to sell. So that's the situation there. Moving on from that, and considering at the moment, as I've been saying in a lot of these videos, I'm thinking with the process that the club hasn't been sold, that there's no guarantee it's going to be sold, so I'm talking about budgets on that basis. There's word from ESPN, I believe, that Leicester are looking at Donny van de Beek, that United would like to make some money back on the $45 million they paid. It's correct. I've been saying this for a while. Donny van de Beek is very likely on his way out of Manchester United in the next couple windows. He does not seem to have a place. He does not seem to have found his way into the team. He's still injured, and there are clubs interested. He wants to play more. Manchester United could let him go in January as one of a transfer that could leave in January. The other one being Ronaldo. However, with Martial's injury, it's even getting more unlikely for there to be a departure of Ronaldo in January, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Donny van de Beek could be sold, and this could help to raise funds for Cody Gakpo. Cody Gakpo is still entirely of interest and a forward that would be needed. One of the questions I have to you is, do we need two strikers? I can see a logic for bringing in a Cody Gakpo in January and bringing in someone like Ramos in summer because of the injury to Anthony Martial, that we cannot rely on him, that there may be a situation where we need one now and two come summer with Ronaldo's departure. Cody Gakpo is still of interest, still there, shares the agency with Ten Hag, still communication occurring, and PSV still want to sell him, and they would like to cash in on it. And it's not going to be insanely expensive due to the situation of that club. but that's still the main name being looked at for January, but there are others. There was a report as well today that United were scouting this. The Greek goalkeeper plays it for Benfica, and I want to be clear on something. United are scouting a lot of players in Portugal right now. They're very interested. We've talked about Ramos. We've talked about Evan Nilsson. We've talked about Diogo Costa being the #1 target for goalkeeper. I wouldn't be surprised if they've been looking at that other goalkeeper as well, though I know nothing about him. But there's a report, I don't know how reliable, with regards to that. Talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, it's a funny age of football news, and this ties into the thing about the club sale as well. There's a lot of reporters out there, even reliable ones, who are just putting things out that players and agents want and clubs want. It's just like with the club sale. The line is, there's no sale, it's talked down, it's blah, 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 and you'll see that out there, and you're going to see a lot of back and forth and around reports. And again, I'm not trying to indicate there's a conspiracy here on anything like that, just that it's not always that simple. It's muddy, it's difficult, and the Ronaldo situation is the same. It doesn't matter how many times one reporter says, oh, he's all happy, it's all good, everybody's great, in the press conferences. That's the line from the player and the agent that they're putting out there. Rio Ferdinand said on his video, spoke to him, and he's pissed off. He's upset about not playing, all of that. He wanted to leave. Roy Keane says that he could have left and they should have let him go in the summer. There are people who know who are not putting out just a club line. And the only reason I bring this up is just for the matter of thinking with in the future, there's still a chance he leaves in January. It's not all, roses at United. The more he plays, the better he'll get, but he still wants to play in Champions League. He still wants to have that, and if he could leave in January, he still would, and it's going to be based on some of the things that happened at the World Cup. It's going to be based on Tony Martial. It's going to be based on Van de Beek. It's going to be based on Gakpo, and it's going to be based on if he can get any offers from Champions League club. His camp are still making offers, essentially, offering him to multiple teams out there around. So it's just a funny situation. Same with the club, same with Ronaldo. This isn't about a hard time on that, but just in terms of considering, so we can think with transfers in January, that there's still a chance you can leave. It's a funny time where reporting has almost gone cyclical, where these reporters who are very good at getting scoops and information are now being used more and more by clubs and agents and such just to put out what they want out there. And it's an odd time that we deal with in the reporting and transfer world, where in some ways there's more reliable reporting and in other ways there's even less truth. It's more just even more controlled than it was a few years ago, interestingly enough. But let's talk about the preview of Omonia FC. There's a few considerations that we have here. One is that Tony Martial is still out, Wan-Bissaka out, Maguire out, Van de Beek out. And we obviously have the game on Sunday against Newcastle, a very big game. But Erik ten Hag has also made it clear that he does not want to lose anything. He wants to get in first place in this group, which is important. It's important to get first place. If you get in second in the groups, then you end up with that whole mess where you're playing a third place CL team in an extra knockout round. Not ideal. Erik ten Hag doesn't want to do it. So I think he'll field a strong team, but you also have to balance match sharpness with not over-rotating. Match sharpness with not exhausting players. So what I'd like to see is something like this. I'd like to see Sancho back in the team. Ronaldo, Pellistri, Fred, Casemiro, Bruno, Shaw, Martinez, Lindelof, Dalot, and De Gea. I think this is a strong enough team that can get a lead, that you could then make a lot of substitutions in the second half, and the substitutions don't necessarily make you weaker. You could put on Rashford and Antony in the second half, for example. You could put Rashford down the middle, for example, for Ronaldo if he needs a rest, and Sancho can play the 90. But you could put Rashford and Antony on. You could put Elanga on. You could put players that don't necessarily make it weaker. They just change the team if you still want to keep on the front foot. You could put Eriksen in then for Bruno in the second half. You could put McTominay in for Casemiro. You could put Malaysia in for Shaw. So you could make changes, a lot of changes in the second half. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. I don't think Pellistri is going to start, but I would love to see it. But you could make a lot of changes then in the second half. It's a strong team that should be able to get goals, but you can make a lot of changes in the second half that would also be able to get you goals and stay on the front foot, and I think that's what's vital. That's what I'd like to see, something like this. I think that would be excellent. I think it would be a nice team that would potentially get you, a win, but keeping match sharpness, because I think it's important Casemiro and Shaw, who haven't played that much, still play. I think it's important that, and Varane, as we said, as we've heard, is training separately. I think he'll get a substitute as well, and then he will start on Sunday. But it's important to balance that, where you can bring Antony and Rashford on for match sharpness and Eriksen on for match sharpness, and rotate some of these players out who need the minutes as well, and who need to keep playing in the team. So that's what I would go with. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think? I mean, it should be, again, as we saw, it should be an easy win. It should be an easy win. It should have been easier last time. It should be easy this time. But the proper balance of really getting the team going while resting enough but maintaining match sharpness. So let me know your thoughts on all of this. Let me know your thoughts on the comments from Ratcliffe, on the club sale, on all of that. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and we'll see you in the next video.